Good morning, everybody. Well, good morning for me. Good evening for you, Maren. Today we have the great pleasure to host our interview with Maren Wehrle. She is a professor at the Erasmus School of Philosophy in the Netherlands. Originally, she's from Germany. I would like to start from the informal bio that your friend and colleague wrote for you. It feels more homey. So when I asked Maren to send me, a bio to tell us a little about herself, Maren shared this nice piece with us. So Maren Wehrle, aka Super Maren, because that was the email that you were using at the time, just to give yourself strength in in the navigation of life insecurities and so on, is a wonderful philosopher from the Black Forest. And so you're originally from Germany, who now works at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. She likes to dance, to listen to music, and to run. Everything else is pointless. She works on normality, Freud knows why, attention, and the body. I really enjoyed reading this bio. It feels real. And
Yeah,
yeah,
full credit to Maxime Doyon for this lovely.
exactly. Thank you. And Maxime Doyon is the author of this sweet bio. So let's start from you. I mean, how did it happen that so young you managed to arrive to teach philosophy in a prestigious university as this one? What is philosophy for you? How did it happen that you started on this path?
Actually, I'm not that young anymore, and I'm quite old for an assistant professor. So I hopefully will get my tenure next year, but I'm 42. And a lot of the assistant professors actually in the United States and also in the Netherlands are a lot younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little bit late in everything I did, apart from maybe dancing and singing and reading and speaking. So I actually had to repeat one class in school. It took me longer to study because, I'm from a non-academic background and I had no, let's say, examples in my family and surrounding that have studied before. So I was a little bit shy and did not know how to do study and what to study. So it took me quite a while, to even get the courage to see a professor or go to the library. So my bachelor study, so to say, back in Germany, this was a magister study. So you don't have a bachelor and a master, but you have a sort of exam in the middle. They call it Zwischenprüfung or in between exam. So the first part of my study took me twice as much as the second part. And then my PhD actually went only, and so I finished this in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
All in all, in between, I always had to figure out how to finance myself, how to finance the passion of philosophy. So I worked in between, also in between my master and my PhD. I did internships and worked as a secretary in universities and administrative jobs. So that actually added up. So that I'm quite, that I'm quite a late bloomer, so to say. But maybe I have the advantage or disadvantage in our profession that I, at least from a distance, seem younger than I am. Or it does not. It's not so obvious that I'm actually. Yeah.
No,
actually quite when it comes to age, quite senior as an assistant professor.
Yeah, maybe dancing, running, and all these physical activities keeping you young and active. What kind of pleasure do you gather from this activity? I mean, how much space do they take in your life?
I mean, I always compare philosophy to running, for example. So it's much easier with running than with dancing. Because so let's say the Kantian part of me is a runner and a philosopher. because in running and philosophizing, you are confronted with your limits. So yeah, you have to learn to deal with your bodily or your mental limits, to handle them. Yeah, and you learn to be patient and to be modest. And I think that's pretty much you have the same experiences, mental experience with the limits of your own thinking than with the limits when you run a marathon, for example, of your own body. And then the dancing part would be the more creative part, I think, the more spontaneous part. Although if you're a ballet dancer, you know that's all about strict rules and discipline. And only if you have this as a basis, then you have the freedom to improvise and to dance more spontaneously.
Which philosopher? Which philosopher would you combine with the dance then? Since
dance. Let's see. I mean, Nietzsche and Foucault maybe. They seem to be quite quite playful in what they're doing and quite experimenting. And I would rather, with discipline, I would rather associate Husserl or Kant. But I think they're only good if you combine them. So I always try to combine them because, you need a certain kind of toolkit, also philosophy and analytic toolkit, a little bit of discipline and concepts. Yeah, you have to be able to identify concepts, criticize them, and then to throw them away and make new ones. But I think you first have to have an analytic toolkit before you can be creative in a way that's also understandable and accessible to others. So I have these two souls in my chest, which would be the more classical German philosophers like Kant and Husserl, and then the more playful, but surely more playful authors or philosophers. I would also say Simone de Beauvoir would be also more playful.
Why so?
Yeah, because she never wanted to be a philosopher. She always said she was a writer, and she has a really good philosophical theory, but she kind of is able to put that in a story. So all her ethics is put into the stories of her wonderful books and not only in her theoretical philosophical works, so to say.
Do you have a favorite book of Simone de Beauvoir that you feel like?
Actually, I like the ethics of ambiguity, although it's not so playful, but more structured. But it's about ambiguity, and I think this is a little bit the counterpart of spontaneity and creativity, because I think you could say, because our nature or existence is so ambiguous, that is for her active and passive, we are at the same time an object thrown into the world, but also it's an active subject that acts in the world. We are embedded in time, space, and history. So we are situated and cannot choose where we are born or what our capacities are, but at the same time we're also active and have freedom and responsibility. So in all these tensions, ambiguities, so we are material, but also we have mind and freedom. We are vulnerable. We get affected by others. We can affect others. And all these things, what she calls ambiguity, and especially also the vulnerable or finite parts of our existence, I think they are the precondition to be creative. Because otherwise, why should we have the need to be creative? So, and also this tension creates a certain kind of maybe playfulness, the need to be experimental, but also to react, to adapt to changing situations quickly and spontaneously.
Look, speaking of reacting to situations quickly, in your presentation, I read a very interesting story that you shared with me. Thank you. About how you ended up studying philosophy. Right. I mean, it was, and it's curious, it caught my attention because I know that you study on the notion of attention, that you recently wrote about attention. Why do we pay attention to something instead of something else? And the event that somehow changed your life, because then you started doing philosophy, was somehow out of your radar, out of your attention, because it was a friend of yours that actually introduced you to philosophy, to study philosophy for real. Do you want to share with us
Yeah.
a story, tell us something?
As I said, so normally if you ask someone, yeah, why do you came to philosophy, then you often hear this, it was my destiny. I read Kant already when I was 12. And for me, I totally came there by chance. So it was a totally arbitrary and actually banal story. And actually others made me aware of philosophy because, as I said, and I think also this is a problem. I wrote especially on attention because I have a big problem with attention myself. So I'm working on that. So I'm pretty much self-absorbed and I'm mind wandering all the time. So I'm working hard on being more. So I'm very responsive. I get affected by everything, but on yeah to be more focused also in interaction with other people. But the question, so the story goes that I had actually not philosophy at school. I don't come from a family or background where you read actual books. So we had books, but they were mainly popular books, random books. So I myself loved reading, but I read mostly science fiction and Stephen King books. So I did not have any any further connection. The first connection I had was in school when I took the ethics class. So in my little school in Neustadt in the Black Forest, there's no philosophy course, but if you don't want to take the religion class, you can choose for the ethics class. So it's actually was not a decision by interest, but I thought, no, religion is boring. I don't want to do that anymore. In my rebellious 16 years old. So I took the ethics class, and of course, we read a little bit Kant, Aristotle, and utilitarianism. So mainly typical ethical cases and approaches. But actually, two friends brought me to the decision to actually study philosophy. Because otherwise I probably would have studied literature because I was good in German literature at school and I had no idea about the other possibilities you could study, and I didn't know what philosophy was, or I did not dare to study law or psychology because these were so high level things. I thought I'm not good at that. I'm not intelligent enough, or I will not be able to succeed in there. So one friend actually said, no, Maren, don't do literature, do philosophy. It's much more fun. So, and then I tried to start reading philosophy books, and that was the first, let's say, spark that brought me on this line. And it's a little bit of pity because this specific friend, he always wanted to write a book, and he also always wanted to study, but he ended up in the same little town. And I think the last thing I heard of him was that he still works in little jobs and still lives with his parents, and he got engaged with some kind of ideology, right-wing ideology, or things that I'm really concerned of. So it's for me a really sad case, but he was very intelligent, very creative, and he brought me on this path. And then the other friend of mine, Susie, you are, I don't see you anymore. Nadine, she crossed my path when I had to repeat class, and she was the first one who actually believed in me a little bit. So she was the best of the class, and she was in a group called Storming Brains. So she had in a group for people with high IQs, and she said, "Yeah, Maren, you should go and study this. You are intelligent. You should do that." And she actually, so we have had the last 2 classes in high school together, and we were then best friends and discussed a lot. And I really started on reading, and she was also the one who registered me in Freiburg, because at that time I was so chaotic. I was on vacation,
We're on
visiting,
vacation.
and we phoned. I gave her a little thing where I said, yeah, you have the right to
That's
register me,
incredible.
and she registered me, and then she phoned. I wanted to do literature as main.
Uh-huh.
And she said, no, there's a little NC, so you cannot do that. Should I put philosophy at your first major? And I said, yes, please do that on the phone. And so that's all. So, and then as a second discipline, or as the two minors, she chose then literature and historical anthropology, because she did the same. And I was so happy with that choice. But actually, she made that choice for me. And now she is still also in academia, but she's in the history of medicine. And she is the most intelligent person I know. And I almost feel guilty that I have now an assistant professorship, and I don't know if she has a permanent contract in philosophy, but she was the one who actually registered me and kind of helped me to realize starting this in the first place. Because I would never have see myself as a philosopher, especially not in Freiburg, which has such a tradition. And then you come as a little girl from a little town, and never heard about all those philosophers, or even not in the beginning. Starting to study there, it was a big thing for me, and it was not easy in the first years. I did not even dare to say something in a course. I can imagine, but luckily that changed quite a bit. And I'm very happy with my choice. I never had a second thought about it. So it was my passion from the beginning. Yeah.
Well, we're
So
very grateful to your friend as well to
yeah,
have
I'm
in this.
very, very grateful. Yeah.
And look, what are the philosophers that told you, okay, this is my path? I mean, I feel what they are saying. I come from this little town, I come from this family. Nevertheless, these philosophers can talk to me. I can relate to what they're saying. Who were they?
Yeah. I mean, that's I think the fascination of philosophy, even in our days, where we now critically look at all those, let's say, white male philosophers and all the women that didn't have a place, and we see how limited the canon we have is. But still, if you see it like this, it's still fascinating that you could still, find something of yourself in them, even though all those non-diverse circumstances. And I read so many beautiful books. The first one was Plato's Symposium. I could find, so the whole idea that philosophizing is born out of a certain feeling of lack, but also of desire to overcome that lack, that you are always in between. You know that you're not perfect and that you don't know anything, but that gives you this desire to want to know. But it's not that you're stupid. You have to be as wise to be actually aware that you don't know enough. So this makes you a desire. So I love that book. And although it's a classic and even has nothing to do with my life world where I come from, not at all. And the same was true for a lot of books. I mentioned Beauvoir, but also Rousseau and Foucault and Butler, Bodies That Matter. That was later in my study, actually in historical anthropology. So we had no Butler in philosophy in Freiburg back then. It was, I think that changed as well. You find a link because the questions you have: Am I normal? Am I good? Or questions like, and Husserl, a very basic question: what is perception? What is why is my experience of something normal or not? What kind of role does time play? Your body? I mean, these are so general questions. I think that you can link them to nearly everyone, or at least it was never a problem for me to see a link or to really passionate about that. Yeah.
And so what is normal? What did you gather so far?
I don't know. I mean, it's a big topic, and
Uh-huh.
obviously, it's a problem for me because I always felt a little bit different. I felt in the philosophy business different because it was so because I did not know their language, their academic habitus. I did not know the context. What is a faculty? What is all these different terms? And so I felt a little bit different there. I still feel, although it's here in the Netherlands, you have less of a academic hierarchy in habitus. So it's yeah, and I have a lot of colleagues who are also working class backgrounds and not academic backgrounds. Um, and I also feel very, very unnormal in my own family because my political opinion, because I'm an academic, there are all a lot of tensions, and you have to translate the whole time,
You wrote
especially
that your father didn't come to your PhD
no.
ceremonial
Well,
because
my dad doesn't like those academic people and these elites. So we had a nice lunch afterwards, but he rejected to come to the official ceremony. Yes, and he still has no high opinion. So it's a typical skepticism against science and people of whom he thinks they feel that they are something better or that they know something better. And I'm still discussed with my parents a lot about this, but I had to accept this, and it's okay. So, and I still see, I mean, it's also a blessing, so to say, that for me in my environment, using a gender neutral or gender sensitive language is something self-evident. For my dad, this is something, this is a reason because in his, I think he's doing sports, and someone on a poster used this kind of gender little star in Germany.
Mhm.
This, and this was a reason for him to refuse to support this kind of sport group, as
Wow.
all of his friends. So they make jokes about it, they hate it, but they don't even know what the term gender actually means. So if you explain it to them, and if you say, I mean, it's the attempt not to exclude or not to say you have to say this and how you speak is not right. It's the little attempt to make a language more inclusive so that more people feel feel heard and seen and included. And it's such a, if this is possible with such a small effort, why shouldn't we do that? Why
Mm.
is there a reason to not do this? I mean, it's not an ideology, it's not a polarization, it's not about politics, it's just about this little thing, trying to include more and trying to, it's just a small effort. It does not hurt you, it does not take anything away from you. And I think that, yeah, these kind of little debates and translations is that I feel not normal in my family, I feel not normal in philosophy, and I feel also not normal in my relationship because my partner is a non-philosopher, and I'm a very unpractical person, and yeah, absorbed, and I miss things here and there, and he's really tidy and really focused and attentive, and he gives me often, and I'm happy for this, the feeling, know how you and you maybe also your colleagues, how you are acting, that's far from normal sometimes. So I have the sensitivity the whole time, and of course I'm so privileged, there are people who actually have the experience being not normal, so these are very little privileged experience of mine, but at least they gave me a little motivation to find out what normal is. And yeah, I'm still doing research on it, and I cannot give you a solution, but I think so far I come. So you cannot pin it down because normality is not it's not a fixed thing, but it's something we have to work on together. Because a proper normality is a normality that is shared, um, and it's not something you can keep or something that's in the past and that you have to just keep, because the world is changing, we are changing, and normality means in a way that it's we share the same common sense or the same bottom, the same world, um, where which is valid for all. It's related also to objectivity, but also that what we experience is in accordance to what we do and what others do. So it's most of all work, and it's changing the whole time. And I would make a very small difference between what I find in phenomenology, and if you speak about normality from a phonological perspective, it's not about what is normal, but how you feel normal, or how you experience normally.
Mm-hmm.
In a continuous way, for example, in a not fragmented way.
Can you tell us why phenomenology tells us so, to bring up to speed our listeners? Why
Yeah,
phenomenology, what is phenomenology, and why phenomenology offers this solution about normality?
I think phenomenology, I cannot make in a short way. So I love phenomenology, but I'm not uncritical about it. I think what phenomenology can offer us is that it tries to understand things like objectivity, not apart or independent of subjectivity, but tries to understand it within subjectivity. We are all kind of somehow individuals and have a specific limited perspective, but still we have something we share, and still we say that's one world, or we have something that we call objective.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we come to this? It must be, as Husserl said, something we can experience. So there must be within the experience a difference between an illusion and something that we call objective, something that's only in our heads, and something that's transcendent. It means is its own being, exists outside and independently of us. And he tries in this detailed, complicated analysis to show that these little hints are to be found within experience. So it's not that experience is here and that's not reliable and not important, and here is objective science, but there is something within experience that gives us a hint and can bring us to objectivity. And that's also with normality, because lived normality is not, you can say there's a represented normality, what is normal in your society, in your history. If you would say, yeah, for us, only heterosexual relations, or women and men who are strictly divided and defined as opposites, that is normal. But that's timely and that's historically. That's, I would call, a represented normality. And this is changing, of course, as the values and norms are changing. And there's the level of lived normality. It's how if you experience something normally, that is continuously in accordance with others, with what you have just experienced before. And of course, these two levels are they are interrelated. So what is represented in a society as normal might influence if you feel normally, and vice versa. But I think it makes sense to distinguish the two. And it makes especially sense to put this first person perspective, how you experience something and why we experience something as continuous or making sense and other things not, is really important if you want to tackle these kind of problems. But I would always combine both perspectives. So if I only speak about my experience, it is not enough, of course. And even for the phenomenologists, this would be not enough. They would like to have, what are the conditions of experience? What do we all have in common in our experiences? And then you need people like, Nietzsche, Foucault, or others, critical phenomenologists, Judith Butler, other theorists. I mean, I forget a lot of them, of course. Fanon, Beauvoir, to tell you exactly, or give you an analysis of a specific situation, of domination, of historical, of violence, which lets you see, okay, there are relevant differences. So we are all being situated, but this being situated does not mean for everyone the same. Does not mean that we all have the same possibilities and starting points. And for some, embodiment or everything could be very enabling, and for others, this could be very constraining depending on the situation and circumstances. So I think this historical and concrete perspective is really relevant also for phenomenology to counterbalance it, so to say.
Do you think there is a connection between normality and attention?
Of course.
Eh, is there a line here in your?
Well, I did my PhD on attention, also in cognitive psychology.
Uh-huh.
And actually it brought me to the topic of normality because um, so what you think is normal depends also on your attention, and your attention, the way you attend to something, what you see and what you don't see, is changes in within cultures, interests, if you're hungry or not hungry. I mean, there's so many psychological experiments, what you see in a supermarket when you're hungry, when you attend to, and when you're not hungry, and how you can manipulate that. And what you don't see, or what you, so you could say it's a difficult relation because what you see more often is more normal to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you get used to it, but also you only have attention for things that are not normal. So that's the thing that gets or attracts your attention, everything that deviates from what you expected. So
Mm.
you can also say that's why this if you expect, for example, to use a simple example from my environment. So my dad, for example, thinks that women are not able to park the car in the right way. So if you expect this, of course, you will only attend or be aware of these kind of occasions, and that will in turn confirm what you already thought. But sometimes you could say this is a mechanism, but sometimes you could also say if you then, it could also be that something totally surprises you because you didn't expect it. So I think it's not easy to pin down. It could be said, yeah, it brings you in a certain filter.
Mm-hmm.
You only see what you already think it's normal. But it
Mm-hmm.
also so that attention works with surprise and the new. And
Mm-hmm.
this is mostly the not normal. Or I would say what attracts your attention, I would say, is still within the normal because it's better than normal. So everything what we like, someone who's really special or can run very fast or dance very good, that's still within the normal, so to say. It's just a plus.
Mm-hmm.
The real not normal abject or things that we then also connotate with negative things are the ones that are fall outside, for totally outside of what we expect.
Thank
Um, yeah,
you.
but of course, I think this kind of relation is something that needs to be worked out, and it's about everything that deviates in a negative way, also surprises in a positive way, needs attention, and everything we get used to is already self-evident and normal.
Yeah.
So
Thank
that's
you. This is really beautiful. Yeah. There are often times we feel wrong, we feel strange, we feel weird. And yeah, it's a matter sometimes of disposition, attention that we have toward the expectations, toward what we can see or we cannot see in ourselves and others. Maren, uh, time flew by here, and we're already at my canonical last question, which is a big question. Let's see what kind of answer you find to that. Uh, what's the meaning of life for you? Do you think there is a meaning? What can
mm,
you share with us? What did you gather so far?
what's the meaning of life?
Mm-hmm.
Mm, it's the meaning you give it. I mean, it's your task to give life a meaning, and you can do that not on your own. So I think what the meaning of life is something you have to work on or build or create together with loved ones, with friends. Yeah, to be, because uh, let's state it that way. If no one in his or his own could say this is meaningful, it's only meaningful if someone else also recognizes it as meaningful. Otherwise, the whole term would make no sense. So this is why this is necessarily an intersubjective thing. And I think what has meaning for you in your life, if you think about it, always is related to an intersubjective connection with someone else. Yeah. In a broad way. So yeah, if you say love has a meaning, yeah, you have to share love with concrete, you have to experience it. if you say books and philosophy has a meaning, you have to experience it, and you do that with others and you discuss about it. So you need others to give life, your life, what you do, what you think is worthy of you, a meaning. So I think the meaning of life is created together with friends. And for me, one of my most important values would be friendship, even above love. But that's just because I think I'm a very good friend, and I'm still did not figure out if I'm good at love, because it's so much more difficult. Yeah, I leave it at that. But I think this is this kind of, yeah, support, be honest, be straightforward with, be responsive to other people, and that's the meaning I would give it. And that's why I think philosophy can help, if it can help. You asked me that for well-being, so my first reaction was no. Why should it? I mean, philosophy is not about making you feel better. It's about questioning and doubting and feel less self-confident, and be modest. But if it could help you, it is because this kind of questioning, or the philosophy as a productive form of self, and who say self-unsettlement or self-insecurity, to make yourself insecure in a productive way, makes you also more open to different perspectives. And that are, what are different perspectives? Perspectives from others. It makes you more responsive to the world and to others. And I think in the end, in the beginning, this could make you feel, could be really make you feel anxious and so. But in the end, I think this is what gives meaning, and what makes life meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, this is really, really beautiful. What if these connections that give meaning to our lives are conflictual ones? I mean, you came up quite often to the problem of having to be yourself in a family that didn't know who you were yet while you were growing up. How can you give meaning when your loved ones are somehow different from you, or there is some conflict? Did you find an answer to that yet?
I think it gives even more meaning if you have a conflict, because only in this conflict you find out what you value,
Mm-hmm.
and what you share, actually. Because my parents love me, I love my parents, and they know me a lot better because I'm also a person apart or besides philosophy. I have the same kind of desire as my father, namely to be loved and to be recognized for what I'm doing. I have the same fears, namely not be worthy and not. Yeah, I sometimes I'm too dependent on what others think of me, and think of my work. So I see the same with my dad in totally different situations. So you can be close on a totally different level to people with which you are in conflict,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you recognize this, what you share within this conflict. And I doubt that you can have a real conflict with someone when you are not at the same time sharing something, because why should you have a conflict then? I mean, the conflict and sympathy is a two sides of the same coin. Otherwise, if the other side is indifference, if people are indifferent to you, you don't have or not what I would call a real conflict. Because for a conflict, you have to actually confront yourself with someone else. It's not like I'm here in my ideological group and I dismiss everything what your group said. That's not a conflict. That's just, you don't even start to take others into account, or yeah. But if you have a real conflict, there must be something that relates already. And I think these kinds of conflicts with partners and friends it hurts a lot, and it makes you insecure, but it could even be have the same function as philosophy. It makes you really, really insecure, but it makes you also see where are your limits, where do you want to be at, and what's worth. And what's the point that you want to make, or why are you so hurried?
Thanks for all your wisdom today, for sharing with us your time. It was a great pleasure to have you here, Maren.
Thank you very much, Susie, for inviting me.